DJ Event Planner will change the way you manage and run your business. Streamline all of your procedures and software into one easy-to-manage system. DJ Event Planner, the ultimate online planning tool.
Welcome to DJNTV and Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe. Now introducing the one and only Ben Stowe.
Yeah, baby! Yeah.
Good evening and welcome to Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe. On this show, we get to introduce you to the one and only Ben Stowe. That's that guy right there.
Yeah.
Ben, tonight we are going to tackle two topics that a lot of DJs are struggling with when it comes to audio. And this is probably something you're going to touch on in February during your audio presentation at the DJNTV DJ Convention.
Well, it's your nickel, so yes, if you say so, I will.
This is that's our time for a shameless plug coming up for the show coming up in February. For those of you who are wondering what I'm talking about, in the description of this video there is the link and such to go to the spot to find out more information about our show coming up. We have the DJNTV DJ Convention in Las Vegas coming up February 24th through the 26th. If you're watching this after February 24th through the 26th, maybe you're watching this in March. Well, guess what? There's another one coming up next February that you're going to be able to check out. And if you're watching this beforehand, just ignore what I just said because we're not going to tell you about that one until after the first one's done. So there you are. It's all there.
Go to totally confused me. I'm not even sure I know what year it is anymore.
DJNTV.com/show. That'll get you there. And whenever you want to buy the tickets, use the promo code DJNTV Show 2020 for your ticket prices. Okay.
Unless you're watching it in March.
Unless you're watching it in March, then the promo code will be DJNTV Show 2021.
There you go.
Because we are so original when it comes to promo codes.
Nobody will ever crack your code. That's top secret.
It is.
It's funny, though, because last night I was doing a live sound for an artist that has 40 number ones and 6 Grammys, and I guess I won't name drop, but I will say that I was inspired by something that happened in that show last night, and I actually have continued to evolve and edit what we're going to do for the masterclass, and this involves specifically wireless and RF intermod.
Nice.
And I just sort of something happened as we were getting all the wireless set up, and I was observing the analyzer that I had, and I thought, this is cool. I'm going to do this again. I'm going to do this purposefully to demonstrate this. So it'll be cool. Yeah.
And they're on the stage. Why are we getting feedback again? What's the sound guy? Is he back there shooting a YouTube video? What's he doing back?
Yeah, anybody that's in the adjacent rooms better look out because I'm taking over the airwaves. So
it's just going to do everything. It'll be great. So for tonight's topic, we're going to dig into two different aspects. We're going to be looking at phantom power and what that means. Specifically, with the new Evolve 30 that just came out, there's a little bit different component with phantom power on that particular speaker. So we're going to dig into phantom power. Then we're going to talk about people have been kind of complaining that some microphones have more feedback, give you more feedback quicker, what have you, than others, which gets us into pickup patterns. So we're going to dig into that a little bit on tonight's show. So, Ben, where do we want to start? Do we want to start with phantom power or do we want to start with pickup patterns?
Fielder's choice.
Ice cream?
Yeah, that sounds good. Ice cream it is. Great. See you later.
Okay. All right. That was a great show tonight. Thank you guys for being with us. It was fabulous. It was one of our best shows ever, actually.
Turns out there's no ice cream.
No ice cream. Yeah, no, I think our union.
I feel like I was tricked.
Our union people are not working on ice cream like they used to. Okay, so where do we want to start?
Oh gosh, it really doesn't matter. Maybe we should start out by defining what phantom power is.
I was going to say, and I have
start.
Yeah, let's start with phantom power because I don't have any props at all that could help us with phantom power.
I don't either, and I thought about props that I could have brought sort of after the fact, but I don't know that it would have made much difference. So I think I can adequately describe.
Yeah, I think we'll just go with that.
So I think the first thing is to talk about, since we're talking about the context of it being on the Evolve 30, I think the first thing we would talk about is why you would put something like phantom power on a speaker, and that'll lead us right into what phantom power is. So The Evolve 30 is actually appropriately called the Evolve 30M, and the M stands for mixer. And so one of the really cool things about this is it has a 8-channel mixer built in that you can control from either the back panel or via an app on your iPhone or Android device. And clearly they've designed the Evolve 30 at live sound applications, whether it be a ceremony or a small band that's gigging, or even karaoke or something like that, where you need to have multiple inputs, up to 6 mics, and then a stereo channel. And once we get into the live sound world, we have a lot of devices like condenser microphones, which require power to operate, or active DIs, which also require power to operate. And these devices can receive that power one of 2 ways. One is that some devices allow you to put a battery inside, and then of course that's great until the battery dies. And they're usually not in a convenient place to change the battery, so you'd have to change the battery to make sure it's good for the gig and that sort of thing. And that's hard to remember with a DI, especially when you don't need to, because if you have phantom power, we don't need the battery anymore. Which leads us to, I think, a great jumping off point for what the definition of phantom power is. And I'll get a little bit into the tech specs because I know you'd be disappointed if I didn't.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't want to let you down.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you could go and draw a couple of pictures with color crayons, and that would be good for some people. But I like the tech specs. Get nerdy on me.
Let me see what I've got for pens. I've got a pen. I don't know if I have any crayons. No
crayons. No. You got to get into the numbers. Talk about the gigahertz and watch a witch, and let's go.
Well, they're going to be a little bit lacking when it comes to phantom power, though. I did enjoy your question on my Facebook post the other day. We'll circle back to that in a second.
Yeah, we'll have to come back to yes. We do have to hit that one before we leave.
Don't ask me to have that number memorized. I'll have to look it up. I had to build a special Excel spreadsheet to figure it out. Actually.
I was wondering how you did that. You had a scientific calculator, or you had to use some sort of...
my calculator kept going out of range. I had to do it in Excel. So anyway, things I do for you, John. Phantom power is sending power over the mic line, over this XLR cable from a mixing board or a phantom power injector to this device, whether it's a condenser mic or an active DI. And the name, I guess, comes from the fact that, there's this power that just sort of phantomly being transmitted over the line. It's very discreet. There isn't anything really, bulky going on. It's very sleek and streamlined and just sort of exists. And so thus the name phantom power. And many live sound mixing consoles have this. Sometimes it will say phantom power on the button. Sometimes it'll say plus 48.
Yep.
There are different kinds of phantom power, but really kind of the most common enumeration for that is 48 volt. And so you'll often see that on the mixing board. Couple things to note, because you might be saying, how is this possible? How can we send DC voltage, 48 volts DC, over the same cable that's going to carry our microphone signal, which might be just a few millivolts?
Ben, I've got this question about how can you send this DC signal, this electrical impulse, over the same wires that are carrying the audio signal from my microphone? I don't know.
I was hoping you'd have that question.
Yeah, thank you.
So basically, in a balanced circuit like our microphone connections are, and any signal capable of carrying phantom power has to be balanced for this reason. But what we're looking at there is a voltage difference between the signal carrying conductors. And phantom power is carried over both signal carrying conductors with a reference to ground. So because there is no voltage difference between the two, you can still carry a signal over those that can be received on the other end. So now a couple things to note about this. One, a ground lift switch or anything that would lift the ground, because it's the reference point for phantom power, would eliminate that.
Yeah.
And also an isolation transformer, which is actually very, very common on split snakes that we would use in the concert world. We call them ISOs and GLs, isolation transformers and ground lifts. A one-to-one isolation transformer will also break phantom power because a transformer requires an AC voltage in order to propagate across from one coil to the other. And phantom power, of course, is DC. So it dies on one side of the coil, and that's the end. So there are ways to eliminate phantom power from getting to places we don't want it to. You can also use blocking capacitors and things like that. But the reason I bring that up is twofold. One, Many small, inexpensive mixing boards have global phantom power, which means it's all on or all off. And in some cases, it's just always on. Like on the Evolve 30, it's just always on, but only on channels 1 through 4. More on that in a minute. Now, I'm going to take a left turn with this for a second, and I'm going to talk about videographers plugging recording devices and things into our speakers. Many speakers do not have ground lifts, isolation transformers, or blocking caps. And so plugging in like a Zoom recorder or something that has the phantom power turned on can actually damage your loudspeaker.
Oh.
So, yeah. So just kind of, a complete left turn from what we wanted to talk about. But if you allow a videographer to plug into your system, and I think it is our responsibility as audio people to give them the best audio we can, first, I would probably be giving them a bus out of my console, of my mixer. But if the way you prefer to have them connect, and hopefully they don't just go connect it on their own, right? I mean, that's just disrespectful. So, hey, look, if you're a videographer watching this show, don't do that. That's just not cool, right? Just not cool. Don't touch somebody else's gear.
Yeah.
So 2 points here. Audio pros, it's our job to give them audio, and we're happy to do it. Video pros, let us give it to you. Don't just go take it. But when you make that connection, if you connect it to your loudspeaker, make certain that the phantom power is turned off on the recording device, or you could damage your loudspeaker.
I did not know that. That's good information.
Yeah, just a little something helpful. For those curious, phantom power has been around for only slightly longer than me. It's been around since the mid 60s, and I've been around since the mid 70s. So, it's really not that old of a technology. It's actually fairly young and new. I kind of sort of lost my train of thought for where I was going with all that.
Well, you were kind of working your way to one of the areas you were headed was talking about why phantom power. You were telling us that you can put devices in to defeat that.
Yes,
situations beyond the Zoom recorder, what other situations would we have where we would not want to have that, where 1 through 4, channels 1 through 4 are locked in, but we don't want it on channel 3 for some reason? Why would we not want it?
See, this is exactly why we've done like 200 shows, John, because you can read what was left of my mind and you can get me right back on track. So thank you for that. That is exactly where I wanted to go. So a couple things we're going to talk about here. One, we know that phantom power is needed for a condenser mic, but it is not needed nor necessarily wanted for a dynamic mic, which is a mic that uses a coil and a magnet, sort of our traditional, style of mic. Most dynamic mics can be plugged into a circuit with phantom power without issue. So the fact that it's always on the Evolve channels 1 through 4, really not a big deal. Most pro audio devices, particularly microphones and that sort of thing, are just fine with phantom power turned on because they more or less expect that many of these small format consoles are going to have global phantom power.
Sure.
So by and large, now always check your specs, check with your manufacturer. This is not a universal thing, but by and large, no problem to plug in dynamic mics and other things into channels 1 through 4 on an Evolve or a mixer with phantom power turned on. Totally okay. One glaring exception, which frankly I doubt any DJs would use in this situation, most DJs probably don't even own, would be a ribbon microphone. So do not plug a ribbon microphone into phantom power ever. Don't. And that's why the Evolve has no phantom power on channels 5 and 6. So if you are using a ribbon mic with an Evolve, plug it into 5 or 6. If you don't know what a ribbon mic is,
exactly. Truthfully, I don't know what a ribbon mic is.
Well, and here's my tongue-in-cheek answer. But if you don't know what it is, then you have nothing to worry about. So, if you don't know what it is, you don't own one. So, we'll just move on.
What application would a ribbon mic be used?
Recording, probably, super audio file types of things, I suppose, but they're not very common, really. You're really the overwhelming bulk of mics that we're going to see out in this type of an application are going to be dynamic or condenser.
Okay.
So, yeah, I wouldn't. I think we're okay to just kind of leave ribbon mics. That if you have one, you have one, and don't plug it into 1 through 4.
I've heard of ribbon speakers, but this is the first time I've heard of ribbon microphones.
I'd say, maybe a future show, but again, I don't think something that a lot of DJs would, a pretty niche-y thing, maybe, So that really is the, I guess, the history of phantom power and all that sort of thing. There are, by the way, phantom power is I mentioned the 48 volt. It really is a range from 11 to 52 volts. So,
and why is there a range? Because that's where we're going to be headed with the 30M here in just a sec.
Because people can't agree, basically.
Nice.
So, I mean, that's the truth. I mean, some of it comes out, some of it comes down to like existing standards that were in place, telephone and that sort of thing, way back in the ancient history of the 60s. And, I think the first phantom power that came out was in 64. And that was Shep's microphone, but it was Neumann that came out with the 48 volt in 66, if memory serves me correctly. The differences probably just came down to the way they were building and designing these systems. Most devices pretty much just work no matter what. Mm-hmm. They're kind of designed to accept a range.
Okay.
So, you don't really have to, in most cases, you don't have to look and say, oh, well, this mixer's 48 volt and this mixer's 15 volts, so this will work and that won't work or whatever. And so if I'm going to preempt a question and read your mind, we'll see how good, since you just read mine, let's see how good I do. You're going to ask me what's on the Evolve 30.
Actually, no. This answer I know,
and
I'm wondering why they went, or why would you think they went that direction with the 11 volt connection of phantom power on the...
Well, so if you're one step ahead of me, because I couldn't find any documentation whatsoever to indicate what was on the Evolve 30, but the Evolve 50 is plus 15.
Okay.
So if the Evolve 50 is 15 volt, I'm reasonably sure the Evolve 30 is probably also 15 volt phantom power. That would be, but again, if then you're one step ahead of me.
Yeah, this is actually a question. One of the early questions we had when they were first released. So I had contacted one of the product specialists from Electro Voice, and they said that it was substantially lower than the 48 volt number. They had given me a different number, but let's say it's somewhere between 11 and 15, most likely.
Yeah.
Now, they mentioned...
this is with DC phantom power close counts. I mean, really, I think,
That's what I was kind of figuring, is that it wouldn't matter. But now, there's still a major difference between 48 and under 20. Now, what can one do better than the other, or why are we seeing such a discrepancy?
Well, higher voltage would propagate over longer distances, but when what we're talking about here is probably 2 milliamps or less. I think it's largely inconsequential. I mean, given what we're likely doing with these systems, I think it doesn't really matter is my point. So I don't know. Like I said, that there is an advantage for anybody to go with 48 versus 15, or a consequence going the other direction. I think it's going to certainly do the job. You're going to be able to plug in your condensers or your active DIs, and it's going to work just fine.
Now, are there some microphones or devices that do need more voltage out there that you are aware of, or is that just that they should work? They will just pretty much work if they need phantom power.
I'm going to answer that two ways, because it was kind of two questions. Are there devices out there that require more? Probably. Am I aware of them? No.
Okay.
I don't recall, and there might be some audio files that just lose it when I say this, but in my world of pro audio engineering and touring, generally you get what you get, and I mean, that's just what it is. Sometimes live sound is largely damage control. I don't remember ever looking to see if it was 48 or 15 or anything in between. It was, does it have phantom power? Yes. Turn it on. Is it working? Go. Yes. Move on. Mm-hmm. So again, there may be devices, but I think by and large, what I've experienced is everybody has kind of built stuff that just works, because this is the environment we live in, where there's a range. There are different actual published standards for the different voltages. But again, if you're a company building a DI, you want that thing to work with as much different stuff as you can. And when you think about it, there are some microphones that operate on a single AA battery. Well, that's 1.5 volts. So if you have 15 or 24 or 48, it doesn't matter. When all you really need is 1.5, the circuitry inside just doesn't use what it doesn't need. It has voltage, regulation, and just takes what it needs, basically. So that's probably really where the rubber hits the road,
Interesting. So then we don't have to worry because the numbers are different. If it's got it, we are good with that. So excellent. Let's jump to our next part of this, talking a little bit about some microphones. And you already mentioned a couple of different types of microphones. Some are more susceptible to feedback than others, people are saying. Let's kind of go through that just a little bit of why some are more susceptible.
Well, there's a lot of factors involved here. Microphones have different pickup patterns, which defines how they pick up sound around the capsule of the microphone, in what direction or directions. But they also have different frequency responses. So there's a lot of things going on here, not only where the sound will be picked up from, but what sounds will be picked up and how sensitively. And feedback is rarely a broadband issue. It's a specific frequency that is maybe put out more by that particular loudspeaker and or reflected more within a room and or more resonant within a room and or part of the microphone's pickup that's more sensitive. So there's a lot of things going on here when it comes to feedback.
So my chance of getting a hard and fast rule out of this conversation is pretty much nil.
Yeah, pretty much nil. Completely nil. So pickup patterns are certainly an important part of that. But again, so is the frequency response of the microphone and the frequencies that are being propagated. And of course, there are certain capsules that are a lot better at gain before feedback, meaning they are just more resistant to that. And then it comes down to, your gain structure in the system and the operator. And typically the way we eliminate feedback, and I believe you and I did a great show on this a while back, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, but listen, viewers, nothing's changed in 4 or 5 years. So go watch the show. We could do it again today, and it's just as relevant. So just go watch it. There's free help right there. Would be, an EQ. My particular tool of choice in 99% of the cases is a parametric EQ. We're simply going to find what frequency or frequencies are the ones that are likely to be offenders, and we're going to notch them out a little bit. And that's going to take care of that. But bringing back to your question, it is a product of all of those things. Certainly we don't want to be over EQing and potentially altering phase as we EQ to eliminate feedback when we could have just solved the problem with a better mic or a more appropriate pickup pattern and or good mic placement. So, I see people struggle for, what seems like an eternity at a mixing board to fix a problem that could be solved by moving a microphone 2 inches. All the time. Our good friend Robbie Britton will, and yes, I called him out by name, but he's a good friend and he's another industry educator. And that's why I don't think he minds being called out by name. He's obviously put himself out there. I remember going to Armed DJs in Orlando and flying in, and I basically walk in the door and Robbie, jams an iPad in my hands and which is connected to a digital mixer and says, "Here, fix this feedback."
Hi, Robbie. Nice to meet you. Nice to see you.
Yeah, thanks. Glad I could come. I'm happy I sponsored this. Sure, I'll fix your feedback too. And by the way, if you don't know Robbie, he's one of the greatest guys in the industry. Truly, his heart is bigger than anybody I know, and I just love what he's doing. And again, I know he doesn't mind that I tell the story. P.S. Robbie, if you mind, I'll just get over it. You're the guy who put the iPad in my hands. So. Yeah. But what we ended up doing, and he had a guy there that was helping him with the sound, and it just had gotten a little bit past what they were comfortable with. And I tried a couple quick things on the iPad, and then I set the iPad down, and he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm fixing the problem." And I went up and I moved the mic, and I came back and said, "How's that?" And he goes, "That's great." So you can spend all day fighting with it on the iPad, or you can fix the problem where it exists. So to that end, let's talk about microphone pickup patterns because frequency response is a lot more complicated and a show or a series of shows in and of itself. That gets into a lot of nuances. Most microphones are designed with a specific purpose in mind. So most of your vocal mics are going to be somewhat contoured towards vocals, whereas a kick drum mic is going to be somewhat contoured towards what we want out of a kick drum. The mic manufacturers have kind of moved things in the right direction for us a little bit. That said, let me pull up some examples here of some pickup patterns, and we'll just talk about 3 really common ones. Let me do a screen share real quick. And there we go.
Yep, we're good.
Cool. So what we're seeing here is a cardioid pattern, and it's called a cardioid pattern because it sort of looks like a heart, at least to somebody. And mostly if you look at it from the side, if we looked at this pattern from the side, it looks a little bit more heart-shaped. But here we can see that a cardioid mic picks up most at the top of the mic. So if the mic was an ice cream cone and you were handing it, ice cream, ice cream. I'll be right back. No, willpower. Nope. I'm going to stay. I'm going to finish this.
Be strong. Be strong, Ben. Be strong.
I can do this. So if we picture this as an ice cream cone, we would be the most sound would be coming straight down into the top of the cone, and still is picking up some sound from the sides and that sort of thing. But if we talked into the bottom of the cone, or if you talked into the cable end of the microphone for whatever reason, we wouldn't get a lot of sound. Now, why is this important? Well, for one thing, this is good if we have stage monitors that are pointing at the person singing, because they're probably pointed just about right where that cable's at.
Right.
So this microphone is going to reject those sounds, and it's going to pick up those sounds from the top, but it's also still going to pick up some sounds from the side. So, engineering is always a series of compromises, right? Let's take a look at another one. This is an Omni. And what we can see here, and by the way, I have to send a shout out to Shure Corporation for making these graphics, by the way. I did not make them. They did, and they allowed me to use them. So thank you, Shure. Because frankly, I'm a lousy artist.
And they're so nice.
Would not look nearly this good. Look like a stick figure with a circle around it. Anyway, so what we can see here is this is an omnidirectional mic. And here we can see that it really picks up in every direction all the way around. So this might be lousy to use with stage monitors because it's going to pick up that monitor just as well as it's going to pick up the vocalist, minus, of course, the inverse square law loss of gain for distance, but still going to pick up from that side. Now, there are applications where I might want this, though. So I might want to be able to pick up from any direction around the microphone, and then I would use this one. And let's take a look at our last one. And here we can see a supercardioid. And you might say, well, this looks a lot like the cardioid, except it's got like a weird kind of bubble sticking out on the backside of the capsule, and you'd be 100% right. This microphone has a similar pickup to a cardioid, but it does still pick up some sound, not as much, but some sound on the cable end. And so you might say, well, why is this super? It looks worse than a cardioid. Why would I want this? I mean, this is bad.
This is bad. There's that hand noise on the microphone. I'm going to hear every time I'm touching the mic.
Well, and of course it would have less rejection from our monitors and that sort of thing. So you might say, well, why is this super? Why would I want this? Well, what we don't see here, and if we would see it if we had these together side by side with the cardioid, is this has less pickup from the side. So we accept a little more pickup from the rear, but less from the side. And so, certain scenarios where this might be more desirable. Maybe I've got a lot of stage sound around me. Maybe I'm using in-ear monitors and I don't have monitors, wedges, stage wedges pointed at my mic. So, and again, within these, and there's also hypercardioid, which, is sort of kind of between the two. And, there are so many different variants besides just these really oversimplifications of pickup patterns that we've talked about that, you can see why they make so many different kinds of mics. It's not really a one size fits all.
Now, are these pickup patterns, are they, or I shouldn't say not designed, but is it the mic element in there that you mentioned earlier? What did you use? The capsule.
Yeah, the capsule, the element, both are appropriate.
But it's the capsule that dictates then what it does. And like with some wireless microphones, you can actually change the capsule. Am I following that correctly?
100%. So I could take a cardioid capsule off and put a supercardioid capsule on, and basically we have two parts of a wireless mic. We have the radio, which transmits the signal, and then we have the mic, the capsule, which is basically the same as its wired counterpart, except instead of having an XLR connection, it has contacts to attach to the radio when it screws onto that handle. And so, yeah, you could absolutely just change out the capsule based on need. and that would work just fine.
Is that something you do when you're doing live sound? There's times where you're like,
all the time.
Okay.
All the time. Yep. I have a collection of capsules and I change them as I see fit. And not just, again, for pattern, but also for frequency response and certain other properties, just the way it sounds and the way it responds to sound and that sort of thing.
So we've looked.
So, well, I was just going to toss this in. Something else that people will notice, sometimes you will see sound engineers cupping a cardioid mic when they're doing testing for feedback and things like that, because when you cup it, it becomes a bit more like an Omni. And so we have to sort of prepare ourselves for what if the artist does, those kinds of scenarios. You'll also notice some real changes on many mics to, the frequency response. It gets real, like SM58, for example, has a real mid-rangey, bumpy thing when you cup it, So probably not the first mic I'd go for like a rap show, because they always do, they always want to do that. But anyway, so that's, we can change those properties of how a mic picks up by doing that. And that's how they design these capsules. Actually, when they go in and they design these capsules, they use different ways of how the air and the sound flow around the capsule to create that rejection.
So you mentioned, of course, the 58 with its capsule. Are there certain capsules that have, like, a certain capsule with this pickup pattern is more of a vocal bump, tuned more for voice, as an example, compared to maybe the super cardioid that isn't as good for female voice as an example? How does the tuning go?
I think we're talking about, now we're back to frequencies as opposed to pickup pattern. I think I would definitely have no problem using a super cardioid on a female, but it depends on the female too. That's not really where I'd go. There are some really great vocal mics in each category. Beta 87, for example, and Beta 58. Both great vocal mics. ND 76, love that. It's also a bit more resistant to being cupped. But again, we could really go down the rabbit hole deep here, and I just don't think we should. But start looking at not only the polar pattern, but also the frequency response. Let me just pull up a mic here real quick. I'm sure on my computer somewhere I have one. It just seems like it wouldn't be me if I didn't. Oh yeah, good. I do have this. Look at this. Yay me. Well, yeah, let's use this one. So let's do this one. So here's something I made probably for a previous show, actually. I don't really know what I made it for. It might have been a presentation, might have been a show. But anyway, sure. I got it. And so what you can see here on top is an SM58, which we just talked about, which is a cardioid dynamic vocal mic. And then down below is a Beta 52, which is a kick drum mic.
Okay.
And so what we can see here, and you can see my mouse pointer, right?
Yep.
So here we can see, now this shows us that this is different at different frequencies. At 125 hertz, it's a lot more, it's a lot more omni.
You're right.
But here we can see we get up to 500 hertz. There's that cardioid. There's that heart shape. Okay. Now we can see why it looks like a heart shape.
Yeah, certainly. And
we can see as we get a little bit higher, that starts to change again, with 2K, 4K, and 8K. So, there's an old saying that I love, that in engineering, nothing ends in zero. Nothing is ever exactly a round number. We just sort of approximate these things. But this would be considered a cardioid mic. And here on the right, we can see its pickup, and we can see that it's really pretty smooth from about 100 hertz to 1K, but then it starts to build as it gets up here. And then we've got a little dip again down here, about 7.5K. So it starts to kind of build up in the high frequencies. It's about a 5 dB boost over, where we're at 100.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to get up towards the top of the human vocal range, the hard consonants, the S's, that 4K is going to be this, we're getting up there, 5K, real top end of that stuff. So, that's obviously something that they have felt is attuned to the human voice. We also notice here a roll-off starting at 100, which is about where we would put a low cut on a console. So they've tried to help get rid of some of that low frequency. There's really nothing in the human voice below 100 hertz. There's just handling noise and rumble and stage noise. So they've helped us try to get rid of that. Now, if we come down here to the bottom, we could look at the pickup pattern of our kick drum mic, and we can see it looks substantially different in the direction it picks up, but it is still very directional to right on axis. So we stick this thing in the port of a drum head, and it's going to give us a really good pickup of the attack of the beater side head. It's going to give us that kick drum sound. And more importantly, we come over here, we can see, and again, there's proximity effect. Okay, and proximity effect means that the closer we get to something, the more the low end is increased usually. And we can see that at 3 millimeters away, there's a lot more low end than there is at 51 millimeters or 0.06 meters. So 1/8 of an inch versus 2 feet, there's a lot more low end because of that proximity effect. But we also see a little bit of a dip here around 300, which is exactly where I typically cut a kick drum. I'll take a big old scoop out of 300, just kind of get rid of that noise and mud that lives in there. And then I'll come back in here about 4 or 5K and I'll put a boost because I want that attack of the beater on the kick drum. I want that kick to really just cut through and not just be all boom and thump, but also to have some real definition in there. And so again, the mic does some of these things for us right out of the box. But this would be a lousy vocal mic, as you can tell, right? So, because it wasn't designed to be a vocal mic. So anyway, if we start looking at these, even between vocal mics, and I'm not sure if I have any vocal mic comparisons. Let me just take a quick peek here on the old computer hard drive and see if I do. I feel like I probably have built one at some point. Of course, I'm at home, so there's just no telling. Oh, wait, what do we got here? Oh, look at this. Sometimes I impress myself. Okay. Let's pull this up. And let's share it with the world. Shazam! So here we can see these are all vocal mics. Our SM58, our Beta 58. Okay, and you can see right away, look at that. Yeah. There's that, super cardioid versus a cardioid. Okay, Beta 87, super cardioid, RE410, 835, both cardioid dynamics, Evie and Sennheiser, and then our Neumann KMS 105. So we can see how that looks here. Everybody just take a minute and soak that in.
So what am I seeing? Let's look at the Beta 87 up and right there. We have on the frequency response graph, we have the solid line, and then we have a broken line. What are the differences between those two? Do you have that or know what that would be?
Sorry.
Frequency response.
I was looking to see if I could find something else for you. Say that again.
Frequency response box in the Beta 87. Okay. You have the solid black line that starts at about 50 and then kind of.
Oh yeah, I do see that.
Yeah, what's that line?
That is probably showing our proximity effect. I don't have the distances that would dictate those two things. Okay. But that is more than likely showing one distance versus another. And that, again, is an illustration of that proximity effect. If we come down here, right here to the RE410, you can see where that is indicated by 1 centimeter. And if we look over here at the Beta 58, here we can see that 1/8 inch versus 2 foot, just like we did on the Beta 52 that we looked at. So for whatever reason, it's not indicated on the chart, but that would be my guess is that that's what they're showing, because that's what they would be typically showing in that scenario. We can also see that down here on the KMS 105. You can see free field and near field, as sort of the different way of saying the same thing.
It's kind of interesting how, so as we're looking at the E835, we don't have that quick drop as much as we do on certainly the 3 Shure microphones that you have up there, where they have that drop at about 7,000.
Exactly. And is it good or is it bad?
Here it is.
Depends.
There it is. Yeah, I was going to say, here is the first one.
Truthfully, the SM58 is kind of a workhorse, but it's an old design, and there's a lot of things that I like better about the Beta 58 as opposed to the SM58. There's a lot of things that maybe people don't love about the SM58, but we all know what those things are.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very comfortable go-to because we know what it is. So whether that bump is desirable or not desirable, it's there, and you know it. And likewise, if I wanted to make an 835 sound like a SM58, I'm going to have to work. And now I don't want to pick favorites in the show here, but I think everybody's kind of got mics they like to go to.
Yeah,
some
certainly.
mics you have to work less with.
Mm-hmm. I get that.
Anyway, that's why they make all kinds of different kinds. If I was to pick a mic for a vocalist that I didn't know what they sounded like, it would probably be the Beta 58 or the 835. I would probably go with one of those two. You have better gain before feedback. I love them. They have a really nice, crisp sound. But that is my preference.
Sure.
And like I've said many, many times, if you put 10 sound guys in a room, you'd probably get 11 different opinions, and without a doubt, I don't have the data to support this, but I think without a doubt, the SM58 is probably the best-selling mic in the world.
Oh, goodness, everybody knows
more of those in the world than anything else.
Yeah.
So, whether you love it or hate it, you really better know it.
Yeah, interesting.
It's also virtually indestructible. There's a lot of SM58s out there because they never die.
Yeah, well, that's what I think. I don't know if I've ever had one in all my years have one die myself, and I've had a lot of other ones. But even with the grill getting smashed, the capsule.
That's true. They have the softest grills in history. That's the one thing that you can't kill the rest of the mic, but you can drop. You breathe on the grill, it gets dented. Yeah. So. But I probably own 100 of them. It's just you got to have them.
Yeah, they've been just. Well, there we talked about pickup patterns. We've talked about frequency pickup a little bit. We've talked about phantom power. I think we've covered our bases.
I can believe I have that stuff on the computer. But that's one of my favorite presentations of all time, John, was I was speaking to a group, and I believe this was out in the Northeast, if I remember correctly. They do you kind of lose track of what was where, but they couldn't agree on a topic, and this was for an association or a group, and so they kind of polled the members, and there really wasn't any clear consensus, and it wasn't a situation like your show where there's kind of you say this is what I want for my members. They didn't have that clear guidance. Mm-hmm. So what was decided finally is I said, you know what, here's what we're going to do. I said, give me a projector and give me a whiteboard, and we're just going to take them as they come. And this show kind of reminds me of that, where I was like, well, oh yeah, I got that. Hang on. Let me just
a second. I'm going to look. Okay.
And it just, it's just sort of, my brain had to be adaptable. Obviously I had to kind of be able to, move from topic to topic, but it was probably my favorite presentation of all time, where it was just, let's just see what comes up next, and let's just have a little nerd here, So,
so for those who follow Ben's personal Facebook page this past weekend, he had put up a graphic. Now, someone had shared that graphic, I'm guessing, or did they tag you on it?
No, a friend who shops on Wish, who shall remain nameless, but a friend who is not an audio person, who shops on Wish, saw this. And I don't know if they were bored or if they were trolling me or what, but that's what friends are for, right?
Yeah, of course.
Said, hey, is this loud? Is 278 dB loud? And I said, yeah, it's loud. It's like as loud as the sun, which actually is really loud, in case you didn't know that. And so I thought, this is worth a post. And for those who follow my Facebook, and I can't remember if I made it public or not. And if I didn't, I apologize, because I am maxed out on the number of friends. I can't add any more friends. Sorry. But 150 dB would almost certainly burst your eardrums, and 200 dB would likely kill you. So 278, and remember, every 10 dB is twice as loud. So 278 is a lot louder than 200. It's not a little bit louder. It's a lot louder. And in fact, Krakatoa, the eruption of Krakatoa, was estimated to be around 230 dB. So 278 would be like 4 times louder and change. And that was heard 3,000 miles away. So this was for a car horn. At 278 dB, you'd probably be able to hear that on the moon. Obviously it's utter crap. I mean, this 12-volt car horn has no chance of being 278 dB. I think it's utter nonsense. And if the manufacturer is watching this show, I don't think they watch any audio shows.
You're probably not a big put that up there.
I don't think they even know what a dB is. But if I'm wrong, if they can prove it, I will publicly apologize.
So the angle that I wanted to get Ben to figure out for us was, we know how much wattage it takes to create so many decibels in the DJ speaker. So if we had a fairly efficient speaker, how much wattage would it take to make a speaker go 278 decibels?
Well,
and how many digits was that number?
Yeah, I'm going to have to just pull the number up because I had to create a spreadsheet to figure this out. I tried to do it on my phone. I tried to do it on an audio app. Both just said out of range, too many numbers, can't do it. So I'm going to see if I can just pull up the number on Facebook here, because I did post it in there because John asked, as he should, right? So let me just see if I can get this number pulled up here. I apologize. My computer's not happy that I'm trying to video chat and be on Facebook at the same time. So.
Where is it? It's got to be here somewhere.
Yeah, you might have it. You might be able to get it quicker tonight, and you can just put a snippet of that up.
Yeah, I was just. Your page isn't loading very. Oh, there we go.
Right below the post where a friend of mine. So while I look, I'll just tell you, a friend of mine texted me from a Christmas party, and he was cheating a little bit on they were playing trivia, and he said, "Hey, what's Yoda's last name?" And
yeah, I saw that.
I couldn't help it. I mean, I'm not a very good friend sometimes. I couldn't help it. I replied, Leahy-hoo. And I could just imagine him at the Christmas party yelling out, Yoda Leahy-hoo!
I got it. Okay.
I told him I feel bad if he lost, but you know what? That's what you get for trying to cheat. So
thousands, millions, billions, trillions, quadrillions.
Yeah, I don't even know how you pronounce that.
What comes after quadrillions?
A lot.
So...
Here, I'll just take a screenshot of this and
yeah, because I can't share. So it's not. It is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 18, 19 digit number.
It's big. All right, let me go find this screenshot.
And that was at 105. A speaker that can do 105 decibels at 1 meter, 1 watt.
Yeah, which there aren't too many of those. I mean, right off the get-go, we can just say there aren't too many speakers that have 105 dB, 1 meter, 1 watt sensitivity. But you know what? I figured let's just go for broke here. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt.
Because
let's say they have one of the most efficient speakers ever made. Because you know what? Honestly, 4 dB of efficiency doesn't make a crap pile of difference when you're talking about a number with 19 digits. So
that's how many watts it would take. So for those of you out there wondering about your 500 watt subwoofer, you need that to make that.
Yeah, and for those who want to take issue with the last post you see there, great Scott, what's a gigawatt? It's largely believed that a gigawatt is a gigawatt because that was considered an appropriate pronunciation, particularly in older times, which Doc Brown would have most likely been familiar with. So I think it's safe to assume that a gigawatt is a gigawatt. Nonetheless, this would definitely send you somewhere at 88 miles an hour. That much power might just send you to the next, I don't know.
Send you somewhere.
It would send you somewhere.
Somewhere. Well, I think that's a good way to leave our show for tonight. Thank you guys for being with us this evening. And again, if you want to check out the upcoming DJNTV show, go to djntv.com/show. That'll take you to the event page. Use promo code DJNTV Show 2020 to get your tickets. And we will see you February 24th through the 26th in Las Vegas. Kicking us off on the 24th will be the one and only Ben Stowe.
And I'm excited about that, John. I spent 6 hours today going through old photos of me working on this keynote. Obviously, the numbers and the technology stuff kind of come easy to me, but the keynote that you've asked me to give, getting a bit personal, putting a lot of time into that. So, if for nothing else, viewers, just come to see baby pictures of me, I guess.
Here it is. And here I am in 4th grade, the first time the teacher told me to not rewire the lights in the classroom.
No, it wasn't the first time, but yeah, I mean, it's funny, too, John. I've been listening to a lot more music from various eras of my life because music's such a powerful thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I realize I'm stepping into Brian and, Michael's areas here, but it's helped me to kind of, be back in those moments.
Sure, I can see that.
Yeah. So anyway, you had a great ending for the show, and then I just threw an encore at you. But okay. Do come because I think it's going to be a great show.
We're going to have some fun in February. So thank you once again, everyone, for being with us. And we will catch you. We'll be coming here in just a little bit with Brian Red. And I'm going to be talking about I think Jay's going to join us too. Just hang on. We'll be back here at the top of the hour. Thanks, everybody.